Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Real Talk Podcast. People making a difference in the Hamptons. And what's a little different about this show is we tend to go a little deeper, really asking questions that normally would not be answered, getting to really know our guest in the community on a much more intimate level. And really focusing on some questions that ultimately make us realize that at the end of the day, we're not all that different. Sharing the fears that we have, the yearnings, insecurities, and dreams, and discovering that, at the end of the day, we are all human. So today, I am delighted to introduce our next guest. She has been described as an utter powerhouse with a signature mane of curls that matches her personality, vibrant, energetic, and fierce. And I know firsthand that she is fierce. She is the executive director of HOLA, Organization Latino Americana, a nonprofit Latino-focused advocacy organization on the East End of Long Island. And I'm going to quote her. I had no background in this kind of thing, but the lesson over and over again has been basically, don't wait for someone to give you permission to do the thing that you know you're called to do. That's an important lesson that I learned. Don't wait for someone else. If you know you're compelled and you know what you're doing, what your intentions are, do it and learn as you go. That's always been my philosophy in life. And don't completely mess things up. One more quote from our guest. The people who are suffering in our community, who are some of the heart of our community, it makes me really sad. But at the same time, the only thing that keeps me going is knowing that I see help coming by way of other community members, both Latino and non-Latino. Quote, a healthy HOLA is healthier East End. There's no other job in the world I could be doing than this. I couldn't do a damn other thing.
Wow, fantastic.
Here is our amazing guest, Minerva Perez.
Thank you. It's really wonderful.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. It's wonderful. So where tell our audience where you were raised, you were born in the States?
Sure. My background is Puerto Rican, Italian, and Polish.
Wow.
That's my full background. I was not raised with my father, who was Puerto Rican. I was born in Manhattan, raised in Miami, and came back to go to college in the city, in New York City, and then ended on the east end of Long Island, ended up here about 2002, 2003.
Where'd you go to school? Where'd you go to college?
NYU.
Ah.
So came out here and just found myself in this beautiful paradise. I had visited a couple times, but took 5 years to really get a foundation underneath me to realize that this is it's a very real place with so many universes of people, of opportunity, of history, and I felt connected to a lot of it. So I didn't come out here and immediately connect to Latino members of our community. I came out here and found the theater community because that was my background. I had a theater company in the city for a while. And then when I first came out, Guildhall, Josh Gladstone, production of The Cherry Orchard, that was my foundation. I was like, these are my weird and wonderful, crazy people. And then as I spent more time, and then I started connecting to more local folks, even folks from the fishing community, then I started hearing too much anti-immigrant sentiment. I got involved with HOLA in about 2006 as a volunteer.
How did you hear about that? What gave you those feelings, those ideas?
Yeah, I mean, it was so obvious. The thing is that I didn't come from a background of Latino advocacy. The work that I did in the city and the theater that I did, it was very much focused on some pretty intense topics, social justice topics and whatnot, but it wasn't only a Latino focus. Out here, It was all over the paper. You know, we had a county executive who was putting out anti-immigrant bills. We had people that were speaking out about day laborers in ways that were not constructive dialogue-driven conversations. They were hate-fueled, and then we ended up having the death of Marcelo Lucero, who was killed for being simply a Latino guy walking home. Words create violence. That is something that we have to learn over and over again, evidently. We can't learn that enough, and we keep doing it over and over again. And hopefully, going to this next cycle, we're gonna make sure that our words actually count and matter. But, so I got involved then as a volunteer executive director.
It had already existed. Ola had already existed?
OLA was formed in 2002
I see, okay,
in East Hampton town,
right.
as a result of concerns around worker safety, access to public education, and also a cultural interest in making sure that that we are celebrating our various cultures. We've got at least 20 different countries that are represented here that happen to be Spanish-speaking nations and areas. So to not look at that and say, oh, that's one culture, it's one language, so it's all the same. A Chilean to an Ecuadorian to a El Salvadoran to a Guatemalan to a Mexican to, you know, we've got a full range of community that's been here and growing for at least the last 40 years in a very major way. There are no overnight, there's a bloom of Latinos that just showed up. This is 30, 40 years in the making. These are folks that are pillars of our community, entrepreneurs, kids going off to Harvard Law and coming back. So this is our community. Right now, we've got 24 school districts across the east end of Long Island, which is a big number to have. But across those 24 districts, the average, and this is a low average, is 50% Latino student body. 50.
East Hampton,
East End, that means Riverhead all the
Riverhead,
way
all the way
to
to-
Orient,
I see.
and Riverhead all the way to Montauk. That's 24 school districts, which is a lot. In East Hampton alone, we've got 7 school districts.
so East Hampton High School, you would say probably 50% Latino?
More.
More?
I'm saying the average across the
The average,
entire
got
East
it,
End is
got it,
50.
yes.
Some of our school districts are 70% Latino student body. Some of our districts, only a few of them are less, like maybe 25%, but the averages are much higher. So I say 50%, but that's a low average for the entire East End of Long Island. The problem for OLA and OLA's focus is more of a look at what these systems and not systems in a pejorative way. Systems, I love systems. I'm a systems person, you know. How do you make it? How do you learn it? How do you tweak it? How do you make sure everyone's being served? I love systems. What I see is that from an institutional perspective, that the needs of our East End community, which is inclusive of all of our Latino family members as well, that has not been, we're not keeping pace. So as we have 50% Latino student body, we have not been keeping pace with what are the other aspects of that, of those families and around each of those students, that those needs might exist. And needs in that, the same needs that you have, the same needs that you have.
Connecting to the non-Latino student body as well. So it's a tightrope, isn't it, in the sense that you're?
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be. It's, you
It
know,
shouldn't be.
It should, yeah, so a school community to me is a community, you know, so, and each school district has its own kind of DNA, which can be a beautiful thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we've seen a lot of districts that we work with where it truly is a beautiful thing. And so within that community, you wanna know, the students are not, I mean, they might choose to sit somewhere else during lunch. It's like a natural Darwinian thing, I think. But they might feel like they just align more with this group. They're the theater kids, or, you know, these are the jocks, or these, you know, this is what happens, right? But what we see, though, is that if there's one ailing student, and that student is ailing, we've got the highest numbers of depression and anxiety that we've ever seen. It is really frightening.
And do you find that since COVID especially, or even before?
I think since COVID, definitely, but it really has allowed there to be just a pull off of this pretend little thing that we'd like to believe everything's okay, it's getting better, it's getting better. That's what adults like to say because they can't handle the reality. Middle schoolers know what the reality is. Middle schoolers. So the work that we do is that we're in the center in these little nuanced spaces of policy, of how things actually work. You could have a policy, but how is it working? How is it working for everyone? Is it serving everyone? And for OLA, our concern is not this level. Our concern is half the time this level. As a
Right.
human being, are your needs being met as a human being? Is it a safer, healthier, and more equitable area?
And this is the question, I think, sorry, Jim.
No, go ahead.
That I think we're all asking ourselves as human beings right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
at the end of, you know, really, what really matters at the end of the day, and really having just what's required right now is just a completely different perspective on life and living. And, you know, what you're saying, Minerva, comes into the second question that we were thinking about. Since the founding of OLA in 2002, can you speak a little bit about, say, the successes, the accomplishments since that time? And then what do you see presently, and you started on it, of the challenges right now? What are the greatest challenges at
And the
this
resistance.
moment? The resistance.
Resistance to some of the
Yeah.
policies that you'd like to see formulated.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, let me start with resistance first, only for a second, because I feel that what kind of keeps me going in all of this, first of all, is knowing how much traction we've gained and how much our community, both Latino and non-Latinos, have been supported by the work that we do and believe in the work that we do. I look at the resistance piece of it as generally a conversation not yet had, an understanding not yet come to, an opportunity.
With who?
With anyone and everyone. So if that means that, let's say I want to see a sort of a better approach or a different approach potentially to victim advocacy. Whether that means the combination of local law enforcement, the DA, school systems, what I might want to see there, what's sort of missing in that space? Where are the gaps that we keep seeing over and over again? Where are the trends? We follow trends. We don't just make it up. So if I look at something like that, and that might be that someone at that table isn't quite seeing the gap. They're thinking it's good enough right now, or they might be thinking, well, what does she want? She must want this, this, and this. Essentially, I've found that half of the resistance that might start off as resistance is just simply information not yet had. It is potentially a fear point, an assumption that what I'm looking for is going to be taking something away from you.
Right.
The scarcity
People-
angle is a really
People
bad
aren't
one.
communicating.
Communication,
And there's no
center.
forum to
And-
do that,
Yeah,
evidently.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and it's remaining in the old paradigm,
Mm-hmm.
and whether it's
Yeah.
this or
Zero sum.
Exactly
Yeah.
right, and it's an old paradigm that doesn't serve anyone any longer. It's impossible,
Impossible.
absolutely impossible.
So what excites me about resistance is that I couldn't really look at any entity out here and say, they're resisting this, they don't want this, they don't want that. The bigger problem for me is that the very same people that are supportive, that say, go, you just go, Ola's doing great work. When push comes to shove and there's something that's very drastic going on, sometimes it's harder to get those folks because they're living in a different world. They're a little bit more comfortable. They don't have the same level of urgency. They believe in Ola. They certainly believe in our team.
Up to a point.
Up to a point. And then at a certain point, it's like, ooh, that's a little uncomfortable. I don't know if I want to have that conversation. I'm not sure if I want to do that thing. And so little by little, though, I do believe that our community has come to realize that when we are waving that flag and we are saying, whoa, stop, we need all of you out. I feel that more and more people are realizing that we're not the boy who cried wolf. If we're telling you that this thing is bad, it's really bad, and we need everyone at the table, or at the board meeting, or at the DA's office, or at the press conference. So I feel like that's what's grown with Ola. That's been, I think, a tremendous achievement. Right now, in 2016, February was when I started as the full-time paid executive director. It was just me and a volunteer board. We now have 17 people working at Ola, 15 full-time. We offer benefits. My care for this community means sustainability. And what nonprofits sometimes do too often is they're running with a nonprofit mind. I like to run with a half nonprofit, half for-profit mind, which is that if you don't take care of your team, you don't look at sustainability, you don't look at your team and your community in almost sort of a customer-focused way. It's not that this is what nonprofits can sometimes do. Not so much out here, but it is a problem, is you should be happy that I'm doing this work. I'm so exhausted, I'm so tired, but at least I'm here. I'm late, but I'm here. I don't have enough of this, but I'm here. It's
Yeah.
not good enough.
Yeah,
It's not good enough.
Yeah.
So OLA is running at a different frequency for a long-term goal that is generational. The work that we do is not based on a president in office. It's not based on COVID. It's based on generational health and security and equity of this entire region.
Cornel West talks about a moment in a movement. It's not about, yeah. But obviously, elected officials do make a difference. So that's the other, and where would you want, it seems so obvious that we need a place to meet and to converse. Where could that be here?
Here's something that I think is difficult. I think groupthink is difficult. I think you bring 2 people to a table, 4 people to a table, you bring 25 people to a table. The dynamics are just different dynamics. I love one-on-one. I love going to have a meeting with the police chief. We have 10 police departments out here. They are all independent. I meet with 10 police chiefs. We also do trainings with law enforcement. So we'll go in, welcomed by, let's say Southampton Town Police, and we'll do a training with that's a mandatory training for all police personnel. And we'll have dialogue, we'll have role plays that we do. So we talk about some of the concerns that we might have, and we listen to the ideas and the concerns that law enforcement have about what they're seeing and what they'd like to have our help with. So it's not a one-way street. But those conversation points, sometimes in group, they're good. I tend to feel that sort of the pressure point of, okay, we're gonna get 25 people in a room and we're gonna tell you what we need you to do, elected official. Maybe it goes well, maybe it doesn't. I have to tell you, the elected piece of things is least exciting to me. I will talk with and work with anyone, but someone being elected doesn't mean they're a shoo-in to get the work done that we need to see get done. Sometimes it's a handcuff situation. Sometimes because they are elected, I will get nothing from them.
Yeah. What, yeah, it's, coming to the table and conversation is key. Is key, no matter what we're doing, locally, nationally. What do you see what are your top priorities right now in terms of moving ahead in this community, and what do you need?
Okay, great questions.
Yeah.
I would say top priorities, I mean, as we've been establishing ourselves in a way that has entities that can only feel comfortable if you're doing things in a certain way are feeling more and more comfortable. So, and that happens to be with a little bit of funding. It doesn't change the independent nature of what we do. There is no one telling us what to do or how to do it, but just the basic things that we have to make sure that we're doing right. But in terms of we have some money coming in from the opioid settlement funds from Suffolk County. We have used that to kind of funnel through the work that we do with youth, our mental and emotional health initiative called Youth Connect. We go into the East End schools with our team. We have a team dedicated just to mental and emotional health work. We run a helpline from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week. We answer texts in English and Spanish. That is the heart center of OLA, very much so, because it is something that we're offering out to all youth. So these are
Young
not just
people in particular.
middle school and high school.
This was right.
And this is for all, not Latino kids,
Right.
all kids, because we are one community and those school communities are one community as well. So we're there and we're answering those texts at 11 o'clock at night. We are going in and sometimes those texts are real severe crisis needs, and sometimes they're really freaking out about testing schedules. They're really freaking out because their parents are getting divorced or they just had a breakup. This is life or death for a lot of kids. Now, even if the child is not threatening to do harm to themselves, they are isolated, they're alone, they don't feel like they can keep telling their friends, they've got no one, and they're texting a stranger. That stranger is us. And so what we've done is sort of create this space that is safe. Our team is trained. We have an LCSW that runs our team as well. It's a non-clinical response. So we are not there trying to diagnose
Right.
on a text line.
Right.
But what we are is that in-between space that youth have let us know that that is what they need most of the time. Some of them also want to explore what is clinical. What do I do if I get a therapist? My mom
Right.
says I'm not allowed to have one. She thinks that we're going to get in trouble if I have a therapist. We're able to kind of talk through that kind of information with the teen and also be able to say, we could talk to your mom too if you'd like us
You know,
to.
I
it
was
sounds
just
like the school, I'm sorry,
No,
sorry, the
please.
schools aren't doing their job.
Well,
on this.
let me jump in there because I think it's
Please.
important. So the schools they're doing a really good job. The issue is that when it comes to having a therapist, like social worker, on the school team, all of our schools have therapists on the school team. Because of the needs of the student body, generally they are relegated to kind of focusing on the IEP, which is an independent education plan. They're focused in on that. They're focused in on a lot of the crisis that might be popping and going off in a school. They're focused in on that. The space that they don't have the bandwidth for, and they're just not going to have the bandwidth for, is a kid who is crying at 10 o'clock at night because they think they're going to fail this test. They don't know what else to do. They feel really stupid. Is the school going to take that text? Probably not. Is that kid going to feel comfortable to go to the social worker to say, I was crying all night, I don't know what to do? Not really, because it's not really a space for them. Now, I'm not saying they can't be better, but I'm saying that what we're offering and showing is that we need to offer our youth so much more. So we're talking to the governor's office right now. I just had a meeting with the governor, me and three other organizations this far away from Governor Hochul to talk about what are we going to do for our East End region. The East End is too often thought of as this tawny region that doesn't need anything.
Exactly
It's got
right.
enough money, everyone's
Exactly
fine,
right,
you know.
yep.
So we changed that dynamic. We've got some elected officials that I think have been doing a good job. I think Fred Thiel has been working his butt off to make sure that Albany understands that we are not this precious little region out here. But we're going to do that as well. I'll be in Albany February 17th talking with lawmakers as well about what we need to see in the East End of Long Island. We do work with the DA in terms of victim services. We're doing work at the federal level. We still have a CDC Foundation grant that we're going into our fourth year potentially, where our focus is not just vaccines, our focus is social determinants of health. Who has access, who doesn't have access, and not from a legislative perspective, but there are laws in place that allow people to have access to healthcare. They don't even know about it. And then our own healthcare providers aren't necessarily always doing the greatest job of making sure that all of those family members understand what they have access to. So there's levels of work that we're doing that are all very important. For me right now, the mental and emotional health work that we're doing with adolescents is number one. Number two, we started an immigration initiative that is pro bono. So we have an immigration lawyer because I couldn't get one released from the Office of New Americans. I love talking to them. I'm talking to them again. They might be able to help us out a little bit. But the East End region means that there's no access point. So what we have is higher levels of exploitation because I don't have enough lawyers that are able to take cases, whether pro bono, low bono, or full price, but reputable.
Right.
So we've got people that are more and more exploited. We've got housing exploitation out here, wage theft out here. You can't get to necessarily a good immigration lawyer that, even if you're gonna pay them a decent price,
Vendor
that you
rights,
know.
sure.
So we've got a pro bono, low income based immigration services that we're providing right now. I'm keeping the numbers lowish because I don't wanna get crazy and take everything and then mess it all up. But she's amazing, and we just recently got word that we're gonna have an immigration fellow released to us through Immigration Justice Corp, which is a New York City-based beautiful firm. So these are a couple of the critical areas, and in the center of all that, the common denominator is youth. The future of our region is our youth, and if we can't commit to that, we need to go somewhere else. Go to North Carolina right now and
Yeah,
just hang it
exactly.
up.
Just in terms of the local community, right here, right now, what can members of this community do right here, right now, hands-on for you? Give me 3 examples.
Funding. I'm
Any-
gonna put it
any
out
one
there.
of us.
I'm putting funding out there. Funding is
Okay.
important. Unrestricted funding.
Okay.
Legacy giving, plan giving. Look at this organization as a generational, absolutely deal breaker. This region can't be without what we do. And if there's someone to come along and do it better, I'll give them my money. But right now, OLA is the only Latino-focused organization doing this work in a broader context across this entire region. With 80% of our board and 75% of our team foreign-born. foreign born, grew up out here. This is homeowners putting their kids to school out here. That's who we are. So funding and getting involved in that way. The other big piece I would say are professional skill sets and attributes. So I would love to see folks with mental health backgrounds that understand sort of, not necessarily, you don't have to just jump onto the board. I'm not going to say that that's the thing, but it could be that in terms of committee work, that I would like to have a few different people at a table from a strategic perspective to say, yes, I'm a lawyer, I'm an immigration lawyer, I'm a civil rights lawyer, I'm a
If I
real
may
estate
just
lawyer.
jump in there, my wife worked at the East Hampton High School.
Okay.
She's a clinical social worker. There was incredible needs there. And I would love to connect you with her.
I mean, those needs are intense. I've worked very closely with Adam Fine, who I think is a fine superintendent at the East Hampton School District. You know, what remains still a giant gap, and I'll say this here because I've been saying it directly to them, is that large organizations that claim to have it, when they don't have it, we have to be careful that we're not gaslighting a community. With that, I mean mental health, I mean Family Service League, which is a great organization, and I think they're trying to do better. But right now, I know that they have one Spanish-speaking licensed mental health professional for the entire East End of Long Island.
Right.
That's a frightening situation for me because we need to have more. And I, for a while now, have been working to advocate on their behalf to say, what can we do to get them more money? How can they get more people? How can they? And now that we're running Youth Connect, I'm saying, listen, they still need to do better, but OLA can also step up and take some of that responsibility ourselves because we know how. We know how to work inclusively because we have been excluded.
I mean, it's amazing. You know how I feel about the work that you do. You know that. Where we need an hour here, we're running out of time right now.
Yeah, we are.
With everything that you do, I just wanted like a quick 2 personal questions. What do you do to stay grounded and empowered? Because you're 24/7. What can you share with the audience that you can instill upon them? What do you do?
I get to have conversations with you. I get to know that if I picked up the phone and said, you know what, I'm feeling low. I'm like, this is driving me crazy. There are kind of hundreds of people that I can call upon that inspire me, that they might be going through their own, and we inspire each other, and youth. I have to say that each and every time that I'm feeling like, oh God, I've had a bad week, I look at what our families are going through and they should have obliterated, they should have just poofed like that. I mean, they are not only sticking with it, their kids are doing great work, they're building businesses. And so and it's not like I'm just, saying, oh, just do better, Minerva. I really take a breath and I think, they believe in this. How come I can't believe in this?
And it sounds like gratitude.
A lot of
On your
gratitude.
part, a lot of gratitude.
Every day and every night.
Yep, a lot of gratitude.
Love back to you.
Yep,
Thank you.
exactly.
Thank you as well. Thank you.
Another intimate question before we have to roll is, just so people have even a more intimate sense of you, like when you were growing up or now or, a number of years ago, what fear or insecurity did you face growing up? And because we all have them. And sometimes it stops us. And then there are powerhouses like you, and often many of us say, I want to do that, I want to be her. What did you have? I mean, what insecurity did you have to overcome, fear, that kind of thing, that you would want to share with any of us to connect the humanness of us all?
But briefly, I'll say that I grew up with a mother who was severely mentally ill. So my whole life was early on, until I was about 7 years old. My grandparents took us in and raised me. Until then, my formation was a lot of chaos. What I learned from that was that I am a protector. That is my purpose. And that I am also a person who, unfortunately, for better or for worse, needs to make sure that things are done well and that people are okay and that there is protection and that there is accountability, because I didn't have a lot of that when I was early on, and I was parentified at a very early age. But I've taken that as my strength, as my badge of honor. And I'm good with it. But that was definitely my formation, was that.
Bringing people together, organizing, creating a great love and transformation.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
That's beautiful.
You're remarkable.
Great to be here. Thank you both.
Minerva Perez, thank you for all you do, and all of us as community members. We have to be right there with you, supporting. On behalf of myself, Barbara Layton, my co-host, Jim Vretros, see you next time and keep it real.